Receding hairline? Check. Deep V? Check. Bar glass filled with lukewarm tap water? Come on, son. Thank you for being patient with me as you waited for this review, because I'm sure all of you were just dying to know my opinion on this movie. Like, dying, like, where is it? But I actually saw this film on Thursday, but then on Friday and Saturday, I had to go to Comic-Con, which is another video in and of itself, which I will be bringing to you shortly. Also, I had to finish my BuzzFeed Copycats video, which I started on Wednesday, and then had to finish that on Sunday. So thank you for being patient. I want to be as concise with this review as humanly possible. So that means I'm going to have spoilers. I really want to get into the nitty-gritty of what I liked and didn't like about this film. For those who don't like spoilers, I'll just give you like a summary of what I thought about the film right now. The film was good. I didn't like it as much as the first one, but overall it had some really good moments, but not everything landed as well as it should have. It's pretty decent. I hated this film. Everything about this film was garbage. I hated it. I hate Marvel. I hate this. This is stupid. DC for life. This is the worst thing I've ever seen. There's no such thing as an okay movie or even a good movie. There's only amazing and terrible films. And this film freaking sucked. As you know, this film stars Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. He returns from the first one, as well as Marina Baccarin as Vanessa, and Dopinder and Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Colossus are all back. All of your favorites are back, including a whole cast of new characters. One played again by Josh Brolin, who this just seems to be his year, as Cable. Cable, who is a time-traveling mutant, maybe, comes back in time to kill a kid, and Deadpool obviously has to stop him. It's your typical Terminator time travel story, and that's the thing I'm going to do with this review, is I'm going to talk about the negatives first. Putting this film in retrospect in my mind has kind of been difficult for me because I've been fluctuating a lot. If you've been following me on Stardust, you know that my star rating has been fluctuating a lot because I keep changing my mind on this film. But I think definitively I can say that this film is not as good as the first one, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to sort of start this with a pessimistic note. I'm sorry. That's the way I'm going to do it, and then we can end on a high note. First thing I want to talk about is the plot. I found the plot very thin. The first movie took over 10 years to make. That film was in development hell for so long. I remember the script got leaked, and guess what? I read it, and a lot of that script that was leaked is actually present in the final product of the first film. This film, it felt like a little more rushed, and it didn't feel as tight as the original film, as the first film. And there's sort of a lot of loose plot threads that are just thrown in there, like they wanted to throw in Cable, obviously, because Cable is so important to the Deadpool lore, and they wanted to throw in Domino as well, but I don't think it was really organic in a lot of the sense that it didn't flow as well as it should have, and it didn't flow as well as I think it would have if they had more time to write the script. One huge pet peeve of mine is that there's a lot of lazy writing in the movie in the sense that they admit it. The movie admits that it's lazy writing.
That's just lazy writing.
Like, there are plot holes that are like, how come Cable just can't go back in time to kill Russell or Fire Fist as a baby? And the movie acknowledges that it's just lazy writing. I hate the trope of when a film knows it's bad, it makes it clever. I do not like that. There's a whole misconception that lazy writing isn't lazy writing if you acknowledge that it's lazy writing, and just because you acknowledge that lazy writing is lazy writing, it makes it clever. That's not true. Just because Sharknado knows it's a bad movie does not mean it's a good movie. So there's a lot of instances where I feel like instead of actually tightening up some of these plot holes, the writers were just like, have Deadpool break the fourth wall and just acknowledge that it's lazy writing, because that way it'll be clever. I don't like that. Another thing I didn't like was I didn't feel like every joke in this movie really landed. I felt like the wit was a little more there in the first one. I think when the jokes did land in this film, they landed hard and they were great. But when they flopped hard, because I didn't laugh at every single joke. I laughed at every third joke because it's just rapid fire. It is just rapid fire, which is fine. And then there are running jokes that just don't land for me, and then there are even jokes that they just recycle verbatim from the first one, and that's another gripe I have with the film, is textbook sequelitis. Which, if you don't know, sequelitis is basically the term that is used to describe a sequel that basically takes everything you loved about the original and just turns it up to 11. Let's just have all the same, just more of it. You like Dopinder? Guess what? He's back and he has a bigger role. Oh, you like the little joke where he lost his hand and then regrew his baby hand? Well, guess what? That's back times 11. It wears thin sometimes. But again, it sounds like I'm hating on this movie. I'm not. I'm just getting all my negatives out of the way first. And let's get down to another negative I had. Well, sort of negative. This is kind of in the middle ground. The X-Force. If you've seen the film, you know that the X-Force was a punchline. I even told my friend when I walked out that I didn't see it coming, but I don't know why I said that, because I actually did see that coming. I just didn't remember, because I remember when there were early reactions to early test screenings for Deadpool, people were upset over how they handled the X-Force. And they didn't go into specifics, but when I read that article, I read that and I said, they're a punchline. They're all gonna die on the plane. They're all gonna die immediately. And I said that, but then more articles came out about how they added more X-Force scenes and how they added more character time for them. And then I guess that sort of initial thought I had that, oh, they just all die they just all die as a punchline, that sort of subsided and I sort of forgot I had that thought. But no, I remember, I actually thought that. I predicted that they would all die. I didn't expect it to be as gruesome as it was. What I thought was they were all going to be skydiving and then they all get hit by a plane. And then Deadpool's the only one to survive, Deadpool and Domino. But it was a lot more graphic than that. Holy crap. It was almost like a mini horror film. So some people might have gripes with that because the marketing was so heavily centered on this team, but this team is only a small part of the film. I didn't mind that because this is Deadpool's movie. This is not an X-Force movie. It was cool to kind of introduce the X-Force and then maybe kind of go off and have a new X-Force in the next movie, which they sort of hint at, because, you know, they are making an X-Force movie. Deadpool as a character is not someone I like to see too much of. When he pops up in the comics, I sort of like him to be very contained, you know, I can take him in small doses. You know, for the Deadpool fans, I think they're absolutely gonna love this film. I am a Deadpool fan. I'm not the biggest Deadpool fan out there, but I do like Deadpool. So overall, I did think this movie was good. It's just not as great as I kind of wished. You know, there's a lot of parts that are sort of mediocre, sort of forgettable, and there's a lot of things that just weren't explained. Something like Domino. She goes up to the Essex orphanage, and then she's like, oh yeah, I was tortured here. And then it's just never explained. That one line just sort of explains why she's in the whole movie, but you know, they don't really delve into her backstory at all. They don't really develop her as much as I would like her to be developed. I did like the actress though, which we'll get to when I start talking about my positives. And that's another gripe I had about the film, is that the whole orphanage thing wasn't really explained. What was it? I don't really get it. Like, it's like this mutant orphanage that tries to like electrocute mutancy out of people. Like, I don't understand what it was. It wasn't explained. They didn't really explain that whole facility very well. You know, and at the very end, they're like, oh, they're all pedophiles. It's like a one-off joke, so you don't feel bad that Deadpool and Cable and Domino are just killing a bunch of people. But then it's like, are they all pedophiles? Like, every single one of them? Or is that like a joke? Like, I don't understand it. It just wasn't explained very well. That whole thing with the Essex house, which is obviously a nod to Mr. Sinister, that whole thing just felt off to me. I didn't understand it. Like, I was confused. Speaking of backstory, how they sort of rushed they skipped Domino's backstory. I feel like they should have developed Cable more. I found Cable to be a little one-dimensional, a little one-note. In the comics, I understand he has a very convoluted backstory. He's basically the son of Scott Summers and Madeline Pryor, who was a clone of Jean Grey, who became the Goblin Queen. So technically, he's the son of Jean Grey and Cable, and then all blah, blah, blah. And he's from the future, and then he has this clone twin brother who has all of his powers because he's not infected with the techno-organic virus. It's crazy. I understand it's super convoluted. However, I think they went way too much in the opposite direction to the point where they just don't develop him at all. Because in the comics, he's a mutant who has telekinesis, but he doesn't really utilize that here, or maybe he does because the writers said that when he brings his gun back to him, he's using technology, and the writers even admitted recently that they don't even know if they wrote him as a mutant. That's very strange. You know, they never mention the fact that he's Cyclops' son, and we don't really know much about him. I also thought it was very strange to have Black Tom Cassidy in the film, but then almost to not utilize him. The writers even said they wish they could utilize him more, but they thought that there were too many villains. It's just in the comics, Black Tom Cassidy and the Juggernaut are actually best friends, and they always work together. So it was very strange to have them both in the same movie but not interact. This is kind of like a geek nitpick, like a fanboying here. However, I will say his punchline, like the joke surrounding Black Tom, I thought was really funny. But anyway, I've harped on this film too much. Let's get into the positive, which a lot of you are probably already disliked this video and clicked off of this video because you think I hated the film. But no, I didn't hate the film. Let's talk about the positives. Ryan Reynolds was born to play Deadpool. I mean, that's just hands down. He's amazing. He's funny, he's hilarious, he has a writing credit, and it shows. Where the plot falls short, the character of Deadpool picks it up because he's a funny character, he's so irreverent and just, you know, he's funny. You know, he mocks the X-Men universe, and having the X-Men cameo was a hilarious addition. Having the X-Men show up like they're hiding from Deadpool, that's hilarious. And although I wish I had more X-Force, The joke with Peter I thought was really funny, and then the joke with the Vanisher, with frickin' Brad Pitt playing the Vanisher, I thought that was hilarious. Speaking of the X-Force, I think the coolest addition to this movie is Domino, which is crazy because I thought it was going to be Cable, but no, it's Domino. When her powers are in full effect, she has some of the coolest sequences because it's like a chain of events that happen around her. That is really cool. Plus, I really like that actress. Zazie Beetz is a really good actress, and I really want to see her in more stuff. She plays off of Deadpool really well. And I think it really worked out for this film because she added another tone that I really liked to this film. Positives about Cable is his power set, or his technology power set, is very cool. I like his look. His look is very comic accurate, besides him being, you know, shorter than he is in the comics, because in the comics he's 6'8", but they even joke about that in the movie. And also the new iteration of the Juggernaut was the best Juggernaut ever put to film. I don't hate X3 as much as most people do, but I will admit that the Juggernaut did not look as great as he should have in that film. I'm the Juggernaut, bitch! In this film, the Juggernaut looks fantastic, and the fight between him and Colossus was one of the highlights for me. And he's still alive, so I hope he comes back, and he's Professor X's brother in this film, which, there you go. Comic accuracy for the win. The film has really good action scenes. This is directed by one of the guys who brought you John Wick and the guy who brought you Atomic Blonde. I mean, you're expecting great action, and you get great action. The action is fantastic. The special effects are very good. It's a good time. It's not a film I walk out angry on. It's just a film that it doesn't stick with me as much as the first one did. I liked the film. You know, I didn't love it, but I liked it. There's some parts that it does border on mediocre for me, but there are some elements of the film, like the humor and the action, that just slightly put it above into the good category for me. And honestly, I give it 3 out of 5 stars, and that's not a bad rating. It's not. So out of 10, I'd probably give it like a 7. Although I hate rating things, as you know. But look, my camera's about to die. There's a lot more that I really want to cover. Actually, I think I've pretty much covered all my bases until I start editing this review, and then I realize that there's a ton of stuff that I forgot to mention, which happens in pretty much every single one of my reviews, and it's pretty annoying. But as of right now, I think I mentioned pretty much everything I liked and didn't like about the film. Overall, it was a good film. People on YouTube, especially with film criticism, they don't understand that there is an in-between when it comes to movies. Movies don't have to be good or terrible. I mentioned this in my Tomb Raider review. There is such thing as a good movie. It doesn't have to be terrible, and it doesn't have to be great. Sometimes it can just be good. That's what this film was. It was decent. Wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. At least in my opinion, which again, it is my opinion, okay? I liked the film. Please don't murder me in the comments, because I know how this stuff goes. People say they like a film, and all of a sudden, for some reason, that goes in one person's ear and out the other, and they just assume that they hate the film. And that's just strange to me. I didn't hate the film. I actually enjoyed it. I'm pretty much done here. All right, clever catchphrase. I'll see you guys later.